Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go up to all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, November the 13th, 2024, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan on How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we get started, guys, we do pride ourselves being on a news podcast. Give you the most reputable sources from award-winning journalism sites. We do not do sensational news like Fox News, The Blaze, The Daily Beast, or any of those extreme left, extreme right views. We simply give you the facts, nothing but the facts. At the same time, guys, I'm going to go ahead and apologize in advance because I usually say we try to watch our language on this show, but as you can probably tell by the title, we going to pretty much throw that out the window. At the same time, guys, there may be things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So outside of my daughter who wants to be up, say hi, Zuri. Well, let's talk about it. Why did I say meet your new death panel, or as I like to call them, Trump's cabinet? Well, it's no surprise unless you've been under a rock. Dorito is going to be the next commander-in-chief unless the Simpsons prediction comes true. With that being said, guys, if you haven't noticed in the last 24 to 48 hours, there have been a slew of picks that he has made for his new administration going forward. So before we get into, the other news of why Trump's America is pretty much going to be the second coming of idiocracy, we pretty much got to introduce them. Present your death panel, if you will, because yes, it is a death panel full of loyalists. What I mean by that, guys, is let's start with Susie Wild. Susie Wild, if you don't remember her, she was the mastermind behind Donald Trump's campaign, reaching out to Latinos and somehow duping them into voting for him. At the same time, she has now become his chief of staff, which again is given. I guess, if you got the man back in office through somehow, some way over a qualified black woman, I guess you do need to have a political office somewhere. Not very surprising about that. However, what should be surprising, actually not surprising at all, the Nazi that really was a Nazi, but yet tried to deny a Nazi, and yet he was a Nazi under Trump's original cabinet. He's back. Stephen Miller will be the deputy chief of staff for policy. Now, keep in mind, for all those that remember, Stephen Miller was the guy that literally just sat there a week ago and said, we are going to turbocharge the immigration problem, which means that, remember when Trump said he wanted to do the largest deportation in human history? Well, this is the guy who's behind it. And he's going to be working with the other guy to basically get rid of everybody. Note I said everybody. And again, Stephen Miller, a guy who literally should be in jail, yet somehow, some way, is about to be back in the White House. And I never thought I would be able to say that with an effing straight face. Now, going back, because again, the line just keeps going, folks. We literally just knocked out Susie Wild. Would you believe if I said Marco Rubio was somehow, some way back in the White House? Well, the scary part about this is, guys, he is back in the White House as Secretary of State. I wish I could make this up.
The president-elect has officially announced Florida Senator Marco Rubio as his pick for Secretary of State, and it comes after the surprising choice of a Fox News host for Defense Secretary. So let's bring in NBC News correspondent Dasha Burns for the latest for us. Dasha, first off, talk to us about the Rubio selection now confirmed. How significant is that?
So this is something we reported on earlier, Zinkley. And look, the Rubio selection is part of a universe with folks like Susie Wiles, who has been his co-campaign manager and will be his chief of staff. That universe of people is giving some relief to career civil servants, to sort of government traditionalists who want people with more typical resumes for these jobs installed in those positions. Rubio is not a staunch isolationist in the way that President-elect Trump is. He's been more of a hawk on China, for example, and more aligned with sort of old school Republican views when it comes to foreign policy. So people see that as sort of a nice balance to President-elect Trump and his slightly different views from old school Republican policy. Now, we'll talk about the other picks, but there's then another set of more controversial choices that are alarming some people.
Now let's stop right there, because I love how they try to sit there and say, oh, Marco Rubio's he's a balanced person for Trump. Really? Marco Rubio, who voted against the Affordable Care Act, voted against Obamacare, voted against the Green New Deal, voted against the new immigration deal that actually would have set the border problem along, actually voted against anything progressive, but voted along party lines. Marco Rubio is pretty much the brown noser that made it through high school, somehow made it through your job, somehow became manager, and yet ass kissed his way enough into the White House. That is Marco Rubio. The same Marco Rubio who Trump insulted when Marco Rubio thought he could become president and talked about his wife, saying his wife was quite ugly. And Marco Rubio went, I'm a cuckold. So again, that's just two. Let's actually get to another person, because again, the other guy who is the Secretary of Defense, that's the one that's going to mess you up for a lot of people. Because again, the Secretary of Defense, guys, and I wish I could make this up as far as how he got here, because he was he in the Iraq War? Yes. Was he a veteran? Absolutely. Where was this guy at before Trump decided to nominate him as Secretary of freaking Defense? Fox News.
On the Pentagon, how big of a surprise is that?
It's a bit of a surprise in the sense that things are moving so quickly in terms of how these picks are happening. Now, Pete Hegseth is someone who has long been on Trump's radar. He's a he's an Iraq War veteran. He's got 2 Bronze Stars, Anderson, but he is much better known to certainly the president-elect from his stint as a Fox News host. He co-hosts the program on the weekends. I remember when Trump was in office the first time, he debated with making Hegseth the head of the Department of Veterans Affairs, though there were questions at the time over whether or not he could get confirmed. He doesn't have any government experience. And so that is something that is certainly going to be a reaction that we're seeing on Capitol Hill tonight, even some lawmakers not knowing who Pete Hegseth is. So I think that's a big question tonight over what that confirmation process is going to look like, because obviously he has been tapped to now lead what is the government's biggest federal agency, as you just noted there, with a massive budget and millions of employees at the Department of Defense. But Trump has made his choice in Pete Hegseth, similar to others that we have seen ardent defenders of his on Fox News. He was just in that clip that you were playing there where they were questioning him about the woke generals. That was Pete Hegseth, who was sitting the closest to the camera. And so I've been talking to people. I had heard his name a few hours ago from one source. I had checked in with some others who said, that can't be real. That's not right. I had not heard that even 24 hours ago. So that could give you some insight into just how quickly this came together, Anderson, which may not be, entirely surprising given.
So what's crazy is he was a host on Fox News. And for all those that don't understand, Fox News is not a real news station. It's an entertainment company. Thanks to Dominion, we never got the trial lawsuit that we should have got to basically put Fox on trial. But yes, he was a host that pretty much kissed Trump's ass, that literally knocked down Madam Vice President Harris on everything, but pretty much was the biggest Trump cheerleader next to Senator Lindsey Graham. Where is he now? About to be nominated as Secretary of our Defense. That is effing scary. And I mean scary. But oh, wait, there's more. That was a terrible segue, by the way. But anyway, we literally covered Susie Wiles, Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth. Well, let's just say the dick from Fox News. Anyway, the guy who literally should be under a jail right now, Matt Gaetz. Yes, that guy. The guy who was literally caught with underage girls. The guy who was literally caught with drugs. The guy who, above all else, should not be in office right now, was about to be indicted, but now is about to be in the let's be honest, he's about to be about the third best position you can be in Congress, Attorney General. I wish I could make this up.
confirming the president-elect's top officials, which now includes multiple picks that are prompting some backlash. Just moments ago, Mr. Trump posted on his social media that Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz will be his pick for Attorney General. And the transition team announced former Democratic Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard as the president-elect's pick for Director of National Intelligence. Plus, late yesterday, they announced Fox News host.
So, yes, Matt Gaetz. For all those that remember, this was a guy that was under investigation for practically being with underage girls, possible drug use, and was ducking and skirting, basically following ethics committee, which, by the way, tomorrow was actually going to be coming out with their 2-year report on this man. And yet somehow, some way, because he is now the attorney general, or will be the attorney general in Trump's cabinet, pending his nomination, the case goes away. And you're probably wondering, well, Will, why are we going through all this? Because there's a pattern. And with that pattern, ladies and gentlemen, comes the fact that if you are in Trump's death panel, and yes, it is a death panel. I refuse to call it administration. I call it the death panel that they always talked about, but is now here. And if you haven't noticed so far, everybody we've picked off this panel all have the same thing in common. They all have to wipe their nose and possibly get checked for hand, foot, mouth disease from having their face shoved up Trump's ass. With that being said, meet your new Director of Homeland Security.
Good evening to you, Nora. Every staffing announcement provides further confirmation that Trump rewards those who are devoted to him and passionate about implementing his agenda, which includes untangling the U.S. from foreign conflicts and his signature item, securing the border.
Make no mistake, an invasion of our country is happening, and our border is a war zone.
South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem is considered a hardliner on immigration. And if confirmed as DHS secretary, she would be at the forefront of the plan to deport millions of undocumented immigrants, along with border czar Tom Homan and the architect of the plan, Stephen Miller. With more than 260,000 employees, DHS includes ICE and the Office of Customs and Border Protection. But Noem would also oversee the Secret Service and FEMA, among other departments.
I'm very good friends with him.
Noem, considered a Trump loyalist, was among the first Republican governors to endorse him.
Kristi, I'm truly honored to receive your endorsement, very much so.
Early in the campaign, she was on the short list to be the vice presidential nominee until her memoir revealed she shot her dog because it was untrainable, causing an uproar. Trump is also building out his foreign policy team, expected to tap Florida Senator Mark.
Which it definitely goes into the next thing. But yes, Kristi Noem will now, again, if passing confirmation, which, by the way, if you guys haven't noticed, conservatives now own the House and the Senate, and now the presidency. It's 2016 all over again, except it's going to be worse. But yes, that was the woman who in her memoirs thought it was completely okay to sit there and say, yes, I shot my dog because it was untrainable. And yet PETA is completely and utterly silent. But hey, let's keep going down the list. Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence. Tulsi Gabbard, the woman who used to be a Democrat, then became a Republican, then got on a watch list, then was labeled as a terrorist, and now is about to be a Director of National Intelligence. All I can sit there and say is, that's a hellified glow up if I haven't said one. But yes, also a Trump loyalist, because again, she kisses enough ass to make sure. And this is what I'm getting at, especially with the ambassador to the United Nations, Elise Stefanik, which again, if you guys are noticing what I'm getting at here, with all of these people, there is literally a pattern here. And it's a pattern that a lot of people should really, really pay attention to. Because again, if you notice, when you ask about their policies and their experience, there's none. Hence, Ms. Stefanik.
That will require Senate confirmation. Elise Stefanik, what do we know about her?
Elise Stefanik, she was not only an impeachment defender of his back in 2019 up on Capitol Hill, but ever since, over the last 5 years, she has remained a staunch ally and defender of Donald Trump's, appearing on the campaign show with him. She, in 2021, objected on January 6th to the election results in the U.S. House. She is somebody, though, who became a close ally of his when she took over for Liz Cheney as the House GOP conference chair. She really elevated her voice within the Republican caucus. And at this moment, there were conversations even initially about whether she would potentially play the role of his vice presidential pick. Her name dropped off of that short list over the summer, but clearly as the first selection of his out of the gate to join his cabinet and administration, this is a clear head nod and to Elise Stefanik in the role that she will play in this administration. Of course, you'll recall 8 years ago, his selection to be a UN ambassador was Nikki Haley. This go around, though, he clearly has somebody who he has confidence in serving in that capacity after 5 years in which she remained close by his side.
Yes, absolute confidence in knowing that you've made sure there is a kiss ass as your UN ambassador. And yes, I'm not surprised by that. Not more surprised that for the ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, of all people, because Mike Huckabee is a stout Christian. He believes the fact that America needs to defend Israel just because it's the Holy Land. And yet, at the same time, this former governor, former failed presidential candidate, has basically always had Trump's back and kissed enough ass to make sure he's still there. And yet, what does Trump do? I will make you the ambassador to Israel. You know what Netanyahu and Israel are doing right now? We're about to get everything we wanted. Netanyahu right now is like Putin in Russia. They couldn't be happier about all these dumbass picks that Trump is making at this point. But again, let's keep the party going. Steve Wilkoff, a businessman who is now, who basically paid his way to be on Trump's payroll, is now a special envoy to the Middle East. He is a real estate businessman that's used to making deals. I don't know why, of all things and people, because only people who vote conservative believe this. Businessmen equal great politicians. Forgive me for my French, that is bullshit. Because I can tell you off the bat, businessmen have been elected in these positions before, and they have wrecked economies, states, governments, everything you can think of. There's never been a successful businessman turned politician that people actually like. And yes, I mean that in all sense and purposes. Because also, again, guys, you got to remember, a businessman in the Middle East right now is pretty hot, but there's oil, there's land, there's resources. And what better way to show America loves freedom than pilfering the crap out of it? Send a businessman. Because again, it's not like he has a conflict of interest. Not like he'll actually bring his friends over there to actually pilfer off another country. I mean, America's only done it once, right? But we'll keep this party moving because why? There's a lot of picks. After Steve Wilkoff comes Mike Waltz as National Security Advisor. For all those that are wondering or, doing the proverbial who, let me give you a little bit about this man. Because again, with Israel being the forefront, you need somebody that's had military experience, although his is kind of questionable.
We plan to talk about, there of course is breaking news tonight. I want to ask you about Florida Congressman Mike Waltz. He's actually been on our show, Top Story, quite a bit, being named Trump's new national security advisor. What are his broad foreign policy views, and what does this appointment tell you about the next Trump administration?
Well, they very much mirror the kind of foreign policy that Donald Trump has been talking about on the campaign trail. He is a Ukraine skeptic. He, even though has offered up the possibility and the suggestion that he does feel concerned about Putin's reach within Europe, he's been also raising questions about whether or not the United States should just offer up Ukraine a blank check when it comes to their national security. He is also someone who's raised a lot of skeptical questions about NATO and the role that NATO plays in Europe, and suggested that perhaps some of the NATO countries are not doing their fair share to defend that part of the world. Now, Waltz has a very appropriate biography for someone to play the role of national security advisor. He's been a national security leader in the House of Representatives, on the Homeland Security Committee and others. He also is a former Green Beret, so he's been on the front lines on some of these most important national security issues. But he is no doubt someone who is aligned with Trump's worldview. He may not be, though, a MAGA conspiracy theorist, if you will, Tom, as we've seen some names that have been floated for the administration. Walz is a serious policymaker and will play an important role now in the Trump administration.
Yes, he'll play an important role because, again, people are going to look at him and go, wait, he's a skeptic of Ukraine, which means that we're probably going to pull support. They're probably going to bring NATO back up because Trump loves to pull out, although, ask Stormy Daniels that. They're probably going to want to pull out NATO. At the same time, again, the whole thing with Israel. But if you have to notice, if everything they've talked about all aligns with it, all aligns for what, yes, Sonny, it all aligns for what Trump wants to do. And this is what I keep saying was the dangerous thing about Trump. The dangerous thing about Trump was that if you give a con man, a felon, who is literally okay with being a felon, a second chance, he is going to do things differently. And by differently, I mean that he is going to turn around and not get caught. Literally and figuratively, this man is going to make sure he doesn't get caught. So what does he do? You put in people that literally will kiss your ass and do what you want to do. Don't believe me? That's going to be John Ratcliffe, CIA director. Again, a person who was former director of national intelligence, that's now Tulsi Gabbard's job if she's elected, will do his bidding at the CIA. Led Zeldin, who will be the secretary of the EPA. His main job at the EPA is to make sure, above all else, to dismantle it. Why? Because that's what Trump wants. Trump wants to dismantle the EPA because his business friends hate the regulations that the EPA has put out. And with that being dismantled, GOP people will do what they do best. When they see something they want, they pretty much break it down, they strip it, they'll let it run on its last legs, say that privatization is the only way to save it, and then sweep in and let whatever private company reap the benefits and kick it back to them. That, my friends, is GOP business building 101. Tear it down to give it to your rich white friends. That also being said, not too much left in the cabinet. Again, this is all the picks that we have so far. Bill McGinney, who was also the counsel for Trump's campaign, makes sense that he would also be White House counsel. And then let's get to, as I like to call them, the new Beavis and Butthead of the Trump organization. What I mean by that is Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. These two idiots, and I mean idiots, have literally been given, although Trump says it's not an official government agency, but they're now going to be a part of the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE.
Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to lead a, quote, Department of Government Efficiency. He's also confirmed just moments ago what we would have been reporting, that he will name South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem to be Secretary of Homeland Security. NBC's Vaughn Hilliard joins us tonight now with the latest on all this. Vaughn, obviously the big news right now that just happened moments ago, Elon and Vivek Ramaswamy. What do we know about this new government agency, and how will it work?
Exactly. A lot has developed since the start of the show, Tom. For Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, this idea of the Department of Government Efficiency, number one, exactly how is it created? What does it actually look like? Is there a budget and a staff behind it? These details are very unclear. What I can tell you, though, is that Elon Musk, over the course of the last week, has been a consistent presence at Mar-a-Lago ever since Donald Trump's election. But even before Election Day, Elon Musk had been on the campaign trail on behalf of Donald Trump. And Elon Musk had talked about the fact that the U.S. annual federal budget is about $6 trillion. And he had been telling crowds that he would be able to cut $2 trillion out of the federal budget, which would be slashing it by 1/3 annually. And Donald Trump himself had echoed this on the campaign trail, saying that he would put Elon Musk in charge of government efficiency and bring him in his administration to do just that. And now, 1 week after his election, he is now promising to go forward with that campaign promise. And Now, when we're talking about $2 trillion out of the federal budget, we're talking about staggering numbers that Elon Musk, even himself, admitted would be causing hardships for Americans on the outset, but that it would be financially beneficial for the country in the long term. Of course, we're talking about the federal budget. You're talking about defense spending, immigration spending. You're talking about Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. There's no details that have been provided here at this time, but Donald Trump suggesting that the two men, Ramaswamy and Musk, will have until mid-2026 to figure this out and bring efficiency to the federal government. Again, very little details as to exactly what that means at this point.
So with that also being said, guys, if you're wondering why I'm harping on this so much, outside of Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk basically being offered positions, Elon Musk, who called himself a dark MAGA, who, again, followed Donald Trump on the campaign trail, who, I'm just going to be honest, may, along with him and that other douchebag Joe Rogan, may have been instrumental in Trump reaching a broader audience. I got to call it what it is. Maybe those two actually did help out to a certain extent. That also being said, however, the Department of Government Efficiency, fellas and people, I mean, women, ladies and gentlemen, and people in between, that is Project 2025. The thing that's been out there, the thing that conservatives, it's actually the word conservatives love to not say, but yet it's like eyes wide shut. You have to say that. You have to actually say the word to get in that special little room. And Trump tried to sit there and say, well, I don't know about Project 2025. I know about I just do Agenda 47. For all those that don't know, Agenda 47 is Project 2025 light. However, government efficiency was one of the things that was literally pointed out in that particular mandate because they wanted to streamline government. And keep in mind, we don't have a Secretary of Education yet because Trump wants to dismantle the Department of Education and leave it to states. You cannot do that. Why? Because, again, there is a reason we have a Department of Education to ensure that every American citizen has the right to an education. However, if you leave up to Trump, he will dismantle Secretary of Education because I won't see him pick it. If he does pick one, if it's not, he couldn't do well. Let me not say that. He could do worse than Betsy DeVos. He could pick Lorraine Boebert. Sarah Palin version 2.0. He could pick her. But again, I digress. But the Department of Government Efficiency, guys, is literally their way of streamlining government, which means they would remove vital sections as checks and balances. Because again, now here's the problem. These guys run the show. You can say check and balances all you want to, but Republicans own the House. Republicans own the Senate. Republicans own the presidential seat. It's a clean sweep as far as this election goes. But at the same time, the reason why I say it's 2016 all over again, because what happened in 2016? Republicans got the House, Republicans got the Senate, Republicans got the presidency. It's a clean sweep. And yet I feel like we're history repeats itself because we've learned nothing from it. Because again, you can't help but wonder, because now Trump is given a second chance, what else can possibly happen? But let me not forget the last person who has actually been a part of this death, who's been part of this death panel. This dick, Tom Homan, who is now the border czar. And yet, I just want to point out something that was also seen on an interview with Today when the reporter asked him, because again, remember Trump's big ass mandate, he wants the biggest deportation in the modern history. Elon Musk, who swears up and down he can make miracles happen, who, by the way, is an idiot. He's not a genius. He didn't create Tesla. He bought it. He didn't create SpaceX. He bought it. And at the same time says he's going to slash the budget by $2 trillion. This is the same guy who sat there and said, if you can show me how to end world hunger using $6 billion, I will give it. It was shown. He went radio silent. And yet you're expecting this man, along with con man Vivek, to figure out government efficiency? when half the stuff they said was tinfoil hat conspiracies? Okay. But anyway, back to the border czar. Because again, when they asked him, how do you handle massive immigrant deportation without breaking up families? This was his answer.
Asked on 60 Minutes about Trump's future mass deportation plans.
Is there a way to carry out mass deportation without separating families?
Of course there is. Families can be deported together.
And it comes as Trump is looking to consolidate.
Think about what he just said. This man said with the straightest of faces, like he's just been constipated for about the good quarter of his life, sat there and said, yeah, there's a way to do it. Deport the whole family. And I only say this because the Latino men and women that voted for Trump, this is your reckoning. This is your reckoning. Because if you think, and I'm just going to be honest, because again, it's late night. If you're watching, I appreciate it. But let's also be honest here. Those that voted for Trump voted as if they are not like the ethnical groups they belong to. Because I always said it best, I don't understand how some black men, although 7%, less 7% of black men, less than 3% of black women voted for Trump. I don't know how. That man has never said a policy that was for you. That man never said he fought for you. And again, but white women who vote for Trump, I treat you the same way I treat Dave Chappelle's joke. You can't be mad about the heist he was in on it. You just didn't like your cut. At the same time, white men who voted for Trump, it's like, if you haven't seen this interview with Eddie Huang, where he was actually speaking with someone that voted for Trump, he literally sat there and asked that man, why did you vote for him? And this white man, who was a bit of a dick, but he was honest, his policies keep guys like me on top. And hey, Kara, he's not even in office. I'm already tired. Yeah, the death panel will make you think twice. At the same time, those that all voted for him, because again, it was also Muslims that also voted for Trump because they didn't like Madam Vice President Harris' stance on Israel and Gaza. So again, all these people, these groups of people, you white men and you white women, you Latino and Latino women, you other ethnic groups out there that voted for Trump, you basically asked for the reckoning. You asked for the F part. Now you about to find out. But you're taking us right along with you is the problem. Even more so, the fact that I just literally, what was that? 15 people that have been appointed in offices for Congress. And here's the scary part. You have a director of intelligence that believed that January 6th was an act of freedom. Tulsi Gabbard believed it was an act of freedom. A woman who is in charge of our national intelligence. You literally have people who are in areas of Congress that can affect us for generations. And at the same time, all I can sit there and say is, this is what you asked for. Because here's the other part of this. And I didn't mean to make this entire podcast just about Trump's death panel. I wanted to explain what happens in Trump's America. What I mean by that is the next couple of stories. For example, this guy. A man in Maryland is wanted after an arsenal of weapons were found, including a host of 3D printed ghost guns. A man is currently being looked for because of his arsenal of ghost guns. Now, for guys that don't remember what I said about ghost guns are kits that can be bought online that, when fully assembled, can be a working firearm. Ghost guns do not require a license. Ghost guns do not require age verifications. Ghost guns can be bought anywhere, and they have many untraceable parts. And ghost guns have been popping up more in murders, in shootings, and things of that nature. And yet, when attempted to regulate them, Republicans, the NRA, and ammosexuals abound are against it. Now, why is that? Because again, they always sit there and say, well, the right to bear arms should not be infringed. Jesus effing Christ, it's not how it goes. For all those, and I'm a gun owner, so I have to point this out. And I keep saying this for all you ammosexuals out there. you do have the right to bear arms. But originally the intention was that in the event the government ever became a tyrannical monarchy, to defend yourselves. It is not the intent to sit there and do a whole stock up an armory. Although with the way Trump's death penalty is going, that might not be a bad idea right now. But the whole idea of this, guys, is that yes, you have the right to bear arms, but those guns can be put in the hands of those that will do serious harm, that are emotionally distraught, or, for the simple fact of the matter is, folks that shouldn't have firearms. That is the whole entire point. But in Trump's America, it'll be allowed. You know what else will be allowed in Trump's America? Folks to do Nazi flags and not get stomped out, especially in areas like this.
A performance of the Diary of Anne Frank, not because of the disturbing details from her diary, but because of what was happening outside. Nazi flags being held by several people gathered outside of the production. This video shared on social media shows the demonstrators flying the Nazi flag outside the American Legion where the play was being performed. CNN's Polo Sandoval joins us now. You are tracking this. Were there words? Do we know anything about these protesters? And did people inside know what was going on?
They were told during intermission, Sarah, important to call this exactly what it is, as you point out. This is anti-Semitic hate, and it was on full display over the weekend in Livingston County, Michigan. Several men, several individuals, using masks to hide their faces, not only waving Nazi flags, but also reportedly shouting racist slurs outside that Legion where the play was taking place. According to several reports, they eventually vacated the premises after the Legion asked them to leave. We have reached out to authorities for more information about this. And what we understand is they were out there demonstrating during this production of the Diary of Anne Frank, which, as we know, it tells the story of the Jewish teen that lived in hiding from the Nazis along with her family during the atrocities of World War II. The theater company that put this production together, that did manage to actually complete that performance after that intermission, releasing a statement, Sarah, which I believe is really quite powerful. I'd like to share this with you. The Fowlerville Community Theater Company writing that the presence of protesters outside gave us a small glimpse of the fear and uncertainty felt by those in hiding. We hope by presenting Anne's story, we can help prevent the atrocities of the past from happening again. He wrote that this play really centers on real people and things became very real, more real than they expected on Saturday. I want you to hear directly from the Army veteran Bobby Bright, who actually shot some of that video as he described the events of Saturday night.
People were shocked. They were appalled. Everything that you would expect. 75 people downstairs that watched that play. And out of that 75, there was 50 or 60 of them that were afraid to leave this building. We had to escort them to their cars. Nobody in America should feel like that.
Now, some members of Livingston County has had to condemn this kind of behavior in the past. In fact, as recent as July, white supremacists marched through the city of Howell. The local ADL office, Sarah, calling this absolutely disgusting, this presence of who they described as far-right extremists. And
he's right. It is far-right extremism. Now, for all those that don't know, the Diary of Anne Frank, also a banned book in some states, mostly conservative. Here's my thing. We did not go through World War I and World War II for folks to literally express themselves as Nazis. Now, again, I will also say this. We do have a freedom of speech. Yes. Your freedom of speech does not keep you from getting your ass kicked. Because my thing is, and I will say this and I will stand on it, if you display Nazi rhetoric in this country, you deserve to get your ass beat on sight. Because the funny part is, you'll never see Nazi propaganda in Germany. You'll never see a swastika in Germany. Why? But it's because they come with penalties and jail time. And again, you should get your ass beat. Because if you think about this, because this happened in my home state, this happened in my state of Tennessee, specifically my hometown, Nashville, Tennessee, where you had a bunch of guys dressed up, Nazi propaganda, marching downtown, untouched. And I hated the fact that, and I'm not usually one for violence, but that is a time where we as people need to sit there and show other people you can respect your freedom of speech, but your freedom of speech about to get your ass kicked. They honestly should have been stomped out. And I'm just being honest, because that sends a message. You know what else sends a message? That you can wave a Nazi flag, that you can dress in Nazi garb, that you can pretty much spout racist tones, and law enforcement protects you. That says a message that you'll protect their freedom of speech, but yet at the same time, they're allowed to do this. And it's just a thing about saying something when you allow that type of hatred. Because I guarantee if a million brothers dress up as Black Panthers tomorrow marching down the street, how many police would be sitting there telling them, please move along, or maybe you shouldn't do this? Oh, so it's cool if they do it, but it's a problem if I do it. And I'm just saying, and I'll say it again, if you dress in Nazi garb, if you speak in hatred against any race, you deserve to get stomped out. Well, that's assault. Okay. It's assault, which basically means that you'll be in jail for a few hours, then you're out. And then more likely doing community service. But the beatdown will carry the message. That's all I'm saying. But again, we're now about to be in Trump's new America with this death panel. And here's also what's scary. Because as a guy who has a baby girl, I fear not only for my daughter, but I also have friends on the female side. And I worry for them. Because again, in Trump's America, you guys are the handmaid's tale. You're the brood mares. You're not seen as human beings. Even more so, you get this type of rhetoric, which again makes me nervous, makes me worried, but also pisses me off that some guys think this is funny.
New and disturbing analysis shows attacks against women have surged on social media in the days following Donald Trump's election win. Hateful and sexist phrases like "your body, my choice" and "get back to the kitchen" are getting millions of clicks online. White nationalist and Holocaust denier Nick Fuentes posted "your body, my choice" forever on election night. It's been viewed more than 90 million times. So does this abuse amount to right-wingers just indulging in online trolling, or is it a glimpse into a deeper sexism in this country? Let's discuss with my panel, social entrepreneur and women's lifestyle advocate, Nadia Okamoto, CNN political commentator, Margaret Hoover, and welcoming back, Michaela Carr, GOP strategist. Ladies, it's great to have you on. I'm really looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this. Nadia, I want to start with you. This phrase, "your body, my choice," is rewording and degrading a rallying cry used by women in support of reproductive rights. Have you or your online community experienced any of these attacks since the election?
I mean, I think that it has not just been since the election. I think it's been over the last, let's say, 8 years since we first saw, Donald Trump really come onto the national political scene. And I think that it's because some of this rhetoric has not only been normalized, it's also been celebrated. And so I think that it's something that I've experienced as a content creator who talks a lot about women's health and reproductive freedoms. I have about 6 million followers across socials. And so it's been in my comments. And I think that there, since the election is definitely, I think, an affirmation of confidence from some of those commenters as well.
So, Margaret, what is your take on this? Why do you think these far-right trolls and extremists now feel more emboldened to hurl these sexist attacks?
Look, certainly there has been, Pam, a degrading of the rhetoric and the respectfulness with which we engage with one another. And tone does come from the top. So we do see that from the crassness and the rude language and rhetoric from our politicians, particularly from Donald Trump, and how women are treated. However, I think we also need to be really thoughtful and realistic about the spread of this online and recognize that there is an online ecosystem that ratchets up and divides Americans using incidences and, frankly, embedded biases, divisions between the genders. It is intended specifically to tear Americans apart. Oftentimes, this is happening by influencing factors out beyond our borders. We saw this in 2016 when there was a concerted effort by Russian trolls to take advantage of the division after the George Floyd murder to tear Americans apart.
President Trump.
So again, the my body, my choice thing, it, you know, it pisses me off because, and I point this out because it is amazing to me that women should have complete autonomy over their own bodies. Shouldn't even be a question. Shouldn't even be a discussion, really. It should literally be women have rights to their own bodies. Cool, that's the end. Because I'm gonna be honest, I'll be petty. If there are some men out there that believe that they should have some say over a woman's body, let's flip the script. Then at that point, women have some say over your bodies. Oh, well, no, because that's what you want. I mean, if you want that type of control, what's good for them should also be good for you. Because they try to sit there and say, like, I'll point this out, that if you have to argue if a woman has to carry a baby, then at that point, there should be something done about the man's reproductive organs. Well, what do you mean by that, Will? I mean that if you're so worried about a woman carrying life to term or should be forced to carry to term, then a man should be held accountable for his deposits, if you will. Well, you're saying that man should get a vasectomy? Well, if he what? Well, what if it was the case? No, because you're basically saying castration. Dear freaking God, look up the difference between castration and vasectomies before you make that discussion. But again, if you're trying to have autonomy over a woman's body, then at the same time, it should work. What it works for the woman should work for the man. And while they try to scramble and push the goalpost back, that's when you sit there and say, see, if you're that bent about your body in the hands of other people, imagine how they feel. I'm just saying, your body, my choice. I'm sorry. That's right there with Nazis. You deserve to get your ass beat. I'm talking about you, Nick Fuentes, because the women have been getting you, sir. So I hope you're enjoying being back in incel your mom's basement. Because right now it's amazing for a Trump wannabe that couldn't wait to say your body, my choice forever, ran to a woman for protection. Oh, the sweet irony. But again, welcome to Trump's America. What's also crazy in Trump's America? Minorities, black people, getting this text, depending on what they got, about slavery in 2025.
I don't really want to read them. Erica Leslie has been talking about the post-election racist text messages for 5 days now. But when I asked her to read me the message her son received last Wednesday, I read it once before. It's just too much. It really does something to you when you read it out loud. Me as a parent, because I didn't know it was going to hit like that. Leslie says her teenage sons were some of at least dozens of black students at Santa Monica High School who received a message telling them they'd been selected to pick cotton at a plantation. Everybody's gotten the message, and I'm wondering, how do they know the target? How do you know which children are black? She says through a network of parents, she's determined middle school and Santa Monica college students received the message as well.
You've been identified as a slave, and you're going to need to report on this date at this time.
From California to Kentucky, Florida to Washington, D.C., young black people received similar messages the day after the election. The wording differed slightly, but the message essentially the same.
It says, "Greetings, Aisha Mariner. You have been selected to be a slave."
Just the whole chills that go through your body to think, hey, this is something that they're targeting black kids. But not only that, but now you are also on a national scale. What else are they planning? Law enforcement, including the FBI, are investigating the messages. Leslie is calling for increased security for black children in Santa Monica schools.
So think about that for a second. You're a mother of a child, and they receive a text like that. They receive a text like that to where it says, you have now been identified as a slave. Please report to said area where you'll pick cotton or do this. Let me tell you something. I wish someone would try that with me. Because, again, people are going to find out really quickly we are not our ancestors. We would don't. And again, the funny part is there used to literally be t-shirts. We are not our ancestors. Don't let your president get your ass whooped. So again, and here's the funny part about those two stories I just noticed. Those two stories and this one, which again, all happened in Trump's America. And here's the crazy part about all three of these stories, including the ones about to get played next. Trump has been very quiet. Mr. Protector has been very effing quiet.
My first reaction was one of just disbelief.
Meredith Dragon was shocked to see the University of Rochester covered in wanted posters largely targeting Jewish faculty.
I mean, I do believe that it was targeted at the Jewish community and those who have close relationships in the Jewish community.
One of those targeted in the posters was Joy Getnick of the Hillel at U of R. She asked not to show her face, but said in a statement that the posters, quote, spread harmful anti-Semitic ideas about the Jewish people and about Israel. They further the spread of anti-Semitic hate on our campus in an attempt to sow fear.
Regardless of whether somebody is Jewish or not, the kinds of things that people are accused of, are still anti-Semitic tropes, whether somebody is Jewish or not. So, the tone and the misinformation, the disinformation, and really the call to incite violence, irrespective of whether somebody's Jewish or not.
The student-run Jewish Voice for Peace U of R chapter say they don't know who put up the posters, but, quote, the administration's hasty jump to attribute these posters to anti-Semitism without proper investigation comes across as an attempt to censor any discussion of the U of R's complicity in the Israeli army's ongoing genocide in Gaza.
I think that the university has a lot of work to do with the Jewish community to ensure that people feel safe and secure on campus, because right now they don't.
So what have we covered in literally Trump's new America with his death panel? We've covered that people love to sit there and treat women like objects, and yet only one person's been touched. We've seen Black people get racist text messages, and yet we're also seeing people of Jewish heritage wanted posters as if they're being hunted all over again. And yet, where is that protector? Where is that man that says he will fight for you? Well, he's nowhere to be found. But I can tell you where he is right now, because I wish I could make this up about what I'm about to show you guys. But I want you to hear this because Trump just recently said this, that, he wants to get reparations for white people who have been literally, in his case, disenfranchised from college acceptances. And again, I'm going to let this play a few times because it's Instagram and I really can't stop it.
Measure to have them fined up to the entire amount of their endowment. A portion of the seized funds will then be used as restitution for victims of these illegal and unjust policies that hurt our country so badly. Colleges have gotten hundreds of billions of dollars from hardworking taxpayers, and now we are going to get this anti-American insanity out of our institutions once and for all. We are going to have real education in America. Thank you. Furthermore, I will direct the Department of Justice to pursue federal civil rights cases against schools that continue to engage in racial discrimination and schools that persist in explicit unlawful discrimination under the guise of equity will not only have their endowments taxed, but through budget reconciliation, I will advance a measure to have them fined up to the entire amount of their endowment. A portion of the seized funds will then be used as restitution for victims of these illegal and unjust policies that hurt our country so badly. Colleges have gotten hundreds of billions of dollars from hardworking taxpayers, and now we are going to get this anti-American insanity out of our institutions once and for all. We are going to have real education in America.
So what's crazy about this, ladies and gentlemen, is that, yes, Donald Trump, that idiot, that felon, has sat there and said that white people have been penalized for college, for going to college, or being diverted for going to college So now him and his new buddy Matt Gaetz, who if he is sworn in as the Attorney General, will go after these colleges and try to go after them for their endowments, and with that endowments, give those entitlements to the quote unquote victims. I'm going to say what Joy Taylor said. So basically, reparations for white people. And I know for every black person that hears this, that's in the sound of my voice, that hears or watches this podcast right now, you're all thinking the same thing I'm thinking. What the proverbial frack? So you're telling me that we have to jump through so many hoops for a simple case of reparation that this Dorito-infested Big Mac soaking out of his pores is going to go after these colleges and give reparations back to white people. Talk about reverse racism. Because my God, how? And I'm just curious, what schools would he possibly go after? And I do mean that. What schools would he go after? Because if we're really being honest, it can only seem that it's like if he goes to the HBCUs, those guys that posted that picture of him so long ago, they're going to be looking awfully different. Like we said, all invites to the cookouts are now suspended because we need to review some of the ones that were handed out. At the same time, he's dead serious. And it's amazing how folks are not seeing how dead serious that felon is, that he is willing to pull us back to the brink of idiocracy, to where 1984 is not just a novel, it is going to be our way of life, with Fahrenheit 451 not too far behind, because they're banning books right now. If you believe Mr. Greg Locke in Tennessee, they're burning them too. But again, we are in Trump's America, where the death panel is not too far from being sworn in, and those cases that Trump now has, well, they're about to go bye-bye.
There's some news breaking just this morning about special counsel Jack Smith, who's handling those federal cases against the president-elect. What do you know?
Yeah, that's right. NBC News has confirmed that special counsel Jack Smith, who has led the federal election interference and classified documents cases against President-elect Trump, is planning to step down with other members of his team before Trump assumes office in January. That's according to a person familiar with the matter. NBC News, you'll remember, first reported last week that Smith's office was evaluating the sort of best path for winding down his work. Trump has previously said that he would fire Smith within 2 seconds, his words, of being sworn in. The question is whether Smith now is going to be able to complete a final report on both of these cases, explaining his charging decisions before the Biden administration ends. Of course, the Justice Department has a long-standing policy, Savannah, against prosecuting a sitting president. So both of these cases basically would have gone away quickly once Trump is.
So here's the problem I have with this. Jack Smith sees the writing on the wall. He knows that Trump being appointed, at the same time, he's bringing in his own AG. Trump, although being president, could fire Jack Smith to a certain degree. At the same time, here's the problem that bugs me about this, the DOJ. It is not policy. I hate the fact that it's not policy. It is not policy to indict a sitting president. It's opinion. Because again, thanks to Trump and his appointed judges, thanks to Trump and his administration for ramrodding Supreme Court justices through to where the Supreme Court is sort of leading, that same Supreme Court that basically said some acts the president does, he is immune from, will now be put into effect because, again, unless Biden takes the next 60 days and allows Jack Smith to complete his report and to use his power, that's the only way you can get him. Because technically, Trump's president-elect. And I say this all the time, especially with you Democrats. You guys now have we're literally in the middle of November. You have the beginning, you have all December. It is time to throw out the holiday plans. It is time to throw out the holiday recess. You guys have 45 days less and counting. It is now high time to go ahead and do what needs to be done. I mean, Trump is charged with mortgage fraud from Manhattan. His case in Georgia will be delayed indefinitely. His FBI case will be delayed indefinitely. He'll still be a felon. And yet, because of loophole laws with New York and Florida, he was still able to vote. And there's not a law about a felon running for president. There's not. But here's the problem. Democrats will spend the next 45 days blaming each other. Oh, what did we do? What did we do here? We should have done this. We should have done that. Biden should have dropped out earlier. Kamala wasn't given enough time to really run and do else. You could sit there and that's what Democrats will do. Instead of saying, look, we got 45 days. Because the funny part is Republicans had the same amount of time. And what did they do? When Republicans realized during Trump's first term, Republicans realized, oh, this dude is definitely not getting a second term, not a second consecutive term, not when the economy's in the tank, inflation is high, the unemployment rate is high, inflation is crawling everywhere, things are pricing up, and at the same time, he's making idiotic movements. He's not gonna be in office a second term. So what did they do? Well, they ramrodded a lot of Trump-appointed judges to where they're in now. They ramrodded Supreme Court picks in. One where Ruth Bader Ginsburg's body wasn't even cold yet, to where Amy Coney Barrett was actually nominated and sworn in. So they did all that in the short amount of time they had before Biden became president. Why? Because they wanted to make sure what they needed was in there at the right taste at the right time. Fast forward to 2024. Democrats, you have less than 45 days. Cancel holiday plans and actually get shit done before you lose the House, before you lose the Senate, and before Dorito is reelected with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy right behind him. Stephen Moffat is right behind him. And everybody who is more loyal to him in this administration than the previous one. I'm just saying, Democrats, cancel Christmas. Mariah Carey will still be there. Get done before we reach the dark ages. That's all I'm saying. But the last thing about Trump's America, guys, again, remember when I sat there and said he wanted to give law enforcement full immunity? Well, in his America, this cop will be protected.
With a traffic stop.
I'll have to write you a ticket for improper U-turn.
Oklahoma City Police releasing video from October 27th when Lit Vu was pulled over.
She hitting me.
The officer telling Vu to sign for a ticket, but he refused, trying to explain what unfolded along this stretch of road off Northwest 39th Expressway.
If you don't sign this, you go to jail. Okay?
Yeah,
I don't want to take you to jail.
I'm ready to go.
You ready to go to jail?
Yeah,
ridiculous.
After giving another driver involved a ticket, the officer came back to Vu and his wife, standing in a parking lot. Another angle shows the encounter from store surveillance. You can see Vu touching the officer's arm, then exchanging words before being thrown to the ground. This is the view from the officer's body camera.
Sit up.
No.
You sit up. Sit on the ground.
I feel like that's pretty excessive for a police officer to think like a old 71-year-old man could actually intentionally hurt him.
Toon Nguyen, president-elect for the Vietnamese American community of Oklahoma, says Vu speaks English, but a language barrier escalated the situation.
You shouldn't argue with the cop and you shouldn't speak back. But in certain cases, I feel like we should be able to be given an opportunity to hear our side of the story before a citation gets issued.
Nguyen says members of the Vietnamese community spoke with Oklahoma City Police and the chief before the video was released. Forewarned, it was significant. There's ongoing talks with the department to possibly add equipment to officers' uniforms so incidents like these don't happen again.
They're going to try to invest in language translation services for the police officer when they're approaching a person that has a language barrier.
Yeah, language barrier. I'm sure that was the problem when an officer decided to basically force a 71-year-old man on the ground. Because, yeah, it sounds like an officer with an inferiority complex, honestly. Well, a superiority complex, really. And yet, the crazy part is they're trying to stand and say, well, we need to actually have language assistance for these officers. No, what you need is police reform. What you need is more officers who are better at their jobs. What you need is more requirements. What you need is more training. What you need is definitely not police pandering, police trying to stand and say, well, it's just that he wasn't complying. You guys all saw the video. Tell me what reason an officer have to slam a 71-year-old man to the ground outside of, well, he's not complying with, for what? You asked him to sign a ticket. He refused to sign it. And yet you're the one acting like a temper tantrum because he didn't do what you said because you got a badge. But hey, we're about to be in Trump's America. What did Trump say he wanted to do? Give full immunity to police. Give police, literally and figuratively, the ability to do whatever they wanted. And at the same time, in Trump's America, that officer would have got a commendation. What I'm getting at is, guys, is just that this is the death panel. This is the death panel that Republicans talked about, but yet it came from them. And this is just a handful. We haven't even got to Department of Housing. We haven't gotten to, we really haven't gotten to Secretary, Armed Forces, Secretary of the Army, Navy, Marines. We haven't even got to them yet. And at the same time, this is what you voted for. You idiots, and I'm going to find myself saying this at the end of every podcast, so I apologize to everybody that voted for Trump. You didn't vote. You voted for him because, well, you voted for somebody that was exactly like you. A fucking idiot. Just saying. But we're going to go ahead and move on to our feel good segment because Lord knows we need one. Usually on How the Frack Got Here, we usually cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom. Sometimes make use of faith and humanity. But hey, we're trying to be upbeat. We're trying to be positive. We are the resistance. With that being said, I decided to find two stories tonight to basically give us some hope. And in this one, I like the fact that when a community comes together to actually help a mother and their children in need.
Touch the hearts of many of you at home. Angelica Williams, a single mother of twin daughters who are all living in their car.
And back in August, WBTV's Erica Lunsford shared how the car that they were living in was stolen, with many of their personal belongings and documents inside. Well, today, William and her girls have a house to call home.
It's amazing, right? WBTV's Erica Lunsford joins us now live from outside their home in Concord with more. Erica?
Well, Jamie and Siobhan, while speaking to Angelica William today, she fought back tears just thinking about how you at home helped her and her daughters get back on their feet. And this is a look at their home, a big upgrade from their Kia Optima that she says they lived in for more than 2.5 years. And just wait until you see the inside. William and her daughters now have their own rooms, and she shared she's been blessed with 3 bedrooms, 3 baths, a basement, and a garage to now protect her car, which was previously given to her by her boss shortly after her family's car was stolen. And after we shared William's story, donations started pouring into her GoFundMe, and as of today, over $8,600 has been raised. William says the money donated helped pay for the car her boss gave her and for her family to stay in hotels and buy groceries and supplies, everything they need until they were able to move into their home. Now, through this nonprofit organization called Housing Collaborative in Charlotte, she says that's how they were able to get in their new house. Williams shared that she and her girls have been inside their home for just a month now, and she's thankful for everyone who helped along the way. And she and her girls have a peaceful, safe place to sleep at night. She says the timing could not have been more perfect ahead of the winter months.
When I say the blessings have flowed on us abundantly, and we appreciate every last one of them, when I try to hold back my tears, oh, I get emotional, very bad. But yeah, just knowing that there's people out there that still have that caring heart to donate to someone who they don't know, never met, never seen, never had their eyes on, and to give as abundantly as they have is a true blessing. And if it wasn't for them, I don't know where we would have been before we got into this house and if we would have even made it.
With so much space to fill, Williams said donations from the GoFundMe will now help buy furniture for their new home. Reporting in.
And now that is what I like to call a beautiful story, because again, can't knock somebody, especially with kids, and you're trying to make a way. And at the same time, you know, we're living out of your car was stolen, and then you were homeless, and yet the random acts from strangers have literally led to that woman and her children being in a house. You can't find that's not a better intro story than I don't know what is. But the last story that we got, guys, again, all shout out to this mom out here who again took the bar to be a lawyer, and well, she got some great news.
God.
Oh my God!
You know what? You can cry, you can shout, you can scream. You deserve it. So shout out to that woman, and the shout out to the mother who is now a lawyer as she passed the bar, which goes to show you nothing's impossible, folks. Truly, nothing isn't. But with that being said, guys, we are going to go ahead and call it for this podcast. We thank everybody that liked, that watched, that commented, that let people know this is live. I certainly appreciate that. Apologize for the language, guys, but let's be honest, it's going to be a long ass 4+ years. That being said, some shameless plugging before we do get out of here. Talking about BlurStation.com, guys. It is BlurStation.com. It is the table, the vehicle that we've always wanted, to where our content, our viewership, most importantly, our dollars can go to. Tubi is great, but Tubi is also owned by the same guy who owns Fox, and Tubi is well worth over $100 million. And that is because of our viewership. The same thing can be done at BlurStation, guys. So if you want to, guys, please check out BlurStation. If you do want to join, hit the join now button, and on the join now button, select the bird's eye view affinity, and then you can select anybody there, including myself, Black Spartan. It is $10.99 a month to view BlurStation. $10.99 a month. After 36 months, you do have the ability to own a piece of BlurStation. And honestly, it has never been easier to own a piece of a media network. And BlurStation has it all: movies, television, animation, you name it, we have it. It is basically there. So definitely check it out, guys. It is one of those vehicles we've always asked for that we do need to feed in order for it to grow. Speaking of another vehicle, guys, please check out alwayspressrecord.com. Why? Because shows like mine are available there, to where you can view it on alwayspressrecord.com or APR TV, even on the Roku app. So if you do have a Roku, it's also there as well, where you can, again, see me on all your smart devices. Again, another vehicle that's for us, where our viewership and content can go to. Please check out Always Press Record or APR TV. As for me, guys, you can find me Black_Spartan615 on the socials, as I usually cover a lot of things. Usually like talking with people. And again, I don't mind, just don't make it weird. I don't want to have to turn around and sit there and block folks and, have to start a list. Just be cool. That's all I ask. At the same time, guys, the link at the bottom, make that just a little bit bigger for you guys to see. If you copy and paste that link into your browser, take my link tree. That is the YouTube and Facebook groups for all of our podcasts. Like, share, subscribe, spread the word, because we simply cannot do this without you. With that being said, guys, I know we talked about Trump's death panel, or his administration. I'm gonna call it what it is. It's a death panel waiting to happen. But with that being said, guys, I know we try to be encouraging. We, being the resistance, doing what we can during this administration. I cannot stress this enough, guys. Get involved. What I mean by that is get involved. Find out what's going on in your city. If you can run for office, run for office. If you can start a nonprofit, start a nonprofit. If you can do something that benefits us, because right now we are all we got. And I mean that. I am not expecting anything from Trump and company except lip service. And I feel for anybody that's in the armed forces, because you got this idiot you're about to have this idiot again as your commander in chief. But do the best you can. Try to help others if you can. Be positive, be uplifting, be different. And above all else, fuck Trump. That being said, guys, the last thing I'll say about how the Frack We Got Here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information, but allowing you to make up your own mind. We do better as society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward, try to right our wrongs of the past, but making decisions now that we should have done back then. Like electing our first black woman Supreme Court, electing our first black woman to the Federal Board of Governors. What we should have done is elect our first black woman to be the first Madam Vice President. Again, we should have. But all great things. We don't learn from history. We are doomed to repeat it. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go up at our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the frack we got here. Again, guys, be the resistance. But for all people that voted for Trump, fuck y'all. Peace.